So one of my favorite teachers is Tim Tyson. He was a professor at the University of Wisconsin who went on to become my mentor when I got a master's degree, and my outside advisor when I was getting my PhD, and he continues to be a very, very good friend of mine, and I love him dearly. But when I first met him, I was, I think, a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin, and I was in a history class that I was a history major, and I really decided I hated history. I wasn't doing well. It was boring. I didn't find it relevant to my life. I really enjoyed history and culture. I liked art and culture, literature and culture, but the history classes I was not feeling. So I ended up in one of his history classes, and it was a civil rights movement history. I thought, if I'm going to like history, I'm definitely going to like civil rights. So sure enough, I loved the class. It was fantastic. He was a great teacher. And I remember we were approaching spring break, and this particular class, we were studying the civil rights movement in Mississippi. And we were reading all of the latest literature on the movement in Mississippi. Charles Payne's book, I've Got the Light of Freedom, and John Dittmer's book, Local People. And they were great history books that sort of came to life. And I asked him if he would take us to Mississippi. And this was a small class, probably 15, 20 people. And he said, well, yeah, let's go to Mississippi. And we all kind of laughed, like, he's not serious, but he was actually serious. And he asked the university permission. We rented university vans, which were really cheap. And we went to Mississippi for spring break, and we camped at local campgrounds, and we went to the archive and did archival research on the movement in Mississippi, met with movement veterans, and just generally went to this place that was only real in books. It was the first time in my life that I realized the past is a real place, and that the people you read about in books, the places you read about, were real. It was pretty shocking for me, being a girl from Wisconsin, a white girl from Wisconsin, because I read these books about the movement in Mississippi, and so many of the stories are full of racial violence and terror, and they're absolutely tragic, but they're still totally removed from my living reality. And so going to Mississippi, driving past places like Duck Hill, where we read about just gruesome lynchings, meeting with movement veterans, people who were marching, in the streets in the 1960s, people who were 100 years old who had lived through Jim Crow, that made the past very real to me. It made history tangible in a way that I don't think anything else could have. And that was because Tim Tyson listened to his students, listened to what we wanted, and made it happen. And it changed my life. It changed the way I thought about the past. It changed what I thought I could do for the future. It was the first time I had been in all Black spaces, so it made me become aware of my own racial identity in a way that I never had to think about in Wisconsin. And it made me fall in love with the civil rights movement and its history, and that's what ended up, I think, putting me on a path towards becoming a civil rights historian.